Try this one. It's the Magic Mike. It's the Magic Mike. It's a magic time with Havana Mahoney. Ta-da! Hey, everybody. Uh, I don't know what just happened.
I can't hear anything.
I'm too excited. What do you mean you can't hear anything?
Oh, that's what Dom said.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Or did you say that?
No, that's not me.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not Saving Throw
you're-
Show. That's
there we
Dom. That's right. I'm Tom Lommel. I'm the Dungeon Bastard. Welcome to my show. It's called Disorganized Play. GM prep for the rest of us. Maybe you're not a professional DM. I mean, if professional
We
means
all are.
getting paid, then none of us here are professional DM. But maybe you're not a particularly experienced in the DM chair. I'm here to share my own personal experiences, knowledge, and wisdom for what it's worth. Game the way you want to game. Today we're going to find out the way that Havana Mahoney wants to game, everyone. So, welcome. All right. I hope if the sound's okay, let me know the sound's okay. I had to set up a special, you can tell it's our special overlay, our special head-to-head edition here.
Yeah, I feel like we should spend the whole time
Like this. I could set up the camera that we'd both be in the shop, and then I thought,
yeah,
like,
this is definitely
that
wide
was
enough.
weird.
We could have both fit
Like,
in there. But...
don't look at my beautiful shoulder, everyone. Stop. Oh, too many Havanas. All right. Is that true? So, for those of you who are unaware, normally I tweet out my prep for Ironkeep Chronicles, our weekly Dungeons & Dragons game on Saving Throw Show. It happens every Wednesday. Havana plays Avril Birdsong. Are you a halfling or a gnome?
I'm a halfling.
Halfling, yes. A
Yeah.
halfling rogue.
I've never actually played a gnome before. I think I get scared that they're so small.
Somehow
what would happen to me?
For whatever reason, I always think you're a halfling. I don't know why.
I am a halfling. Wait.
You just said you were a gnome.
No, I said I am a halfling.
You've
I've never
gnome.
played a gnome.
All right, very good. Good. Yeah, I feel like it would have stuck with me if you had been playing a gnome. All right, so Halfling Rogue, we are playing through some parts of Tales from the Yawning Portal, the big adventure compilation that Wizards put together. Last week, in a fit of whimsy, I decided to say, hey, well, you made a smart aleck remark. I wish we could just go back to the video, but
yeah,
I was
the
doing
clip that doomed me.
Yeah, I was doing my standard intro, and I said something that I've probably said 500 times. Well, 500 times.
Oh, and I
before.
said it along with you.
Yeah, and you were like, "Oh, see, I could do your job," and that's...
No, I don't think I said that. I think you.
No, you.
You were triggered by that, and you were like, "Okay, you think you could beat me? Let's do it, girlie."
I'm pretty sure you said something.
I did
like that.
not. I did not. I would never say that.
All right,
I would only
very good.
imply it.
Fair enough. At any rate, in a fit of pique and or whimsy, I decided to see if chat wanted Havana to DM rather than me, and it turns out you do. I'm not going to take it personally.
Man.
So we're doing a special one-shot this week with Havana as the DM with our Ironkeep Chronicles game. And so we're going to talk today. Havana has never DM'd before. We're going to talk today just a little bit for the next hour or so about your first time DMing and planning your first adventure. And this is going to be a one-shot. So kind of what might happen there? How might we, kind of get ourselves prepared, point of the show, to run an adventure for a group for the first time. So that is, we don't have a bigger agenda than that. I feel
Yeah.
like that is the big agenda.
I'm here to ruin the reputation of disorganized play.
I don't think so. No,
it's gonna
actually,
be so organized.
I feel like this is maybe gonna. I have hopes this will be one of our better episodes. As a matter of fact,
it's the most literal translation of.
Yeah.
Teaching people who don't know how to D&D.
So I'm going to take some notes here. Don't worry about me.
On your little pineapple paper.
My little pineapple paper. It is a little bit like, I almost feel like we're having some dungeon therapy right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Tell me about your childhood.
But you know what? So, not exactly that, but, I'm curious, what obviously, I thought from the stuff you said on the stream, I don't know how much of it was a bit and how much of it is honest. What do you find intimidating about DMing? What makes you apprehensive or nervous, or what are you worried about?
Well, I think it's like especially in this session because you're our DM. And you're like cream of the crop dungeon master, so it's like I don't want to have to like be stacked up against that particularly.
All right.
But
Yeah. And in a more generalized sense, like to kind of just apply to everybody in the audience, I think it is intimidating to step into somebody else's group and either just play or like to DM for them when they've had like a long campaign running and they've got like that like group dynamic going.
They've got a groove going.
Yeah.
And like, are you gonna mess
like,
it up?
I
Or
don't
are you
know
gonna
if
make
they're
it
gonna
better?
like what I'm doing. Yeah. All right. Well. So the huh? Oh, do you need to take a break? We have a moment.
I know we just started, but like, I will be so fast. I just took like 2 cups of coffee.
It's
I'm like
right down the hall.
Sorry,
it's right down the hall.
You tell all the secrets.
Okay, I'll tell all the secrets. We're running a little like noon comes early in Los Angeles sometimes, so that's what we're having today. I don't think what Havana talked about is abnormal for anybody. I mean, it's one thing, sure, we do a streaming show and we try to make it as entertaining as possible and we put a little extra oomph and polish into it. So yeah, it's like trying to hit that standard is maybe has a little intensity to it. I don't think, I think the important like takeaway here that we'll kind of learn at the end of our hour together is like it's your game, make it the most fun that you can make it, that put your stamp on it, and then listen, learn, go forward from there. But like no matter where you lift your material from, where you get inspiration from, who you watch, or what you decide to pick for movies and TV to incorporate into your game, it's still going to be your game as long as you don't decide like, oh, well, we're going to play out the plot of Lord of the Rings one for one, right? Like that's not going to happen, right? Del Castillo says, the big hurdle for me DMing as an adult was feeling responsible for the player's fun.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. It's like it's like the thought of balancing something that's both like interesting and has depth, but is also like entertaining, is like a lot. Like if you thought about that in your real life terms, like if you were throwing a party, you were like, well, I want people to want to come, so I have to make it seem intriguing. But then once it's here, it also has to be good. And then,
So that's interesting because I often use the metaphor that DMing is like throwing a party or it's like cooking a meal, right?
Sure, yeah.
So like the way that expresses itself for me is I pick out all of these ingredients, right? Like monsters and the scenario and some story points that could bubble up or whatever.
Sure.
But then, like any party, like you're not just constantly shoveling food at people, right? It's not just people show up and just like stare at you and like shove cake in their face, right? Like they're there, like they see what's on the table and then they pour themselves a glass of wine and they pick up some of the the strawberries and cream cheese or whatever that you have, and then they start talking and interacting,
sure,
right?
Okay, so, it's not on you,
right? And I think that's a difficult. Like, that's a very common feeling is, like, I have to pack so much in, and it's got to go, like, 900 miles an hour. Just go, if there's a moment of pause or whatever, like, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah,
like, how am I going to fill 4 hours, right? That's that's what it seems like the task is. When really the task is you have to prepare 5 things that are maybe 10 minutes apiece.
Sure.
And then the players are going to, like, respond and interact with you for the next 30 minutes about that thing. Yeah. Right? So you're not responsible for 3 hours of solid wall-to-wall adventure. It's not like writing a movie.
Sure.
It's
writing a fourth of a movie.
Yeah, well, it's honestly like I think we messaged about this, but it's like improv where you come up with a set of suggestions and you put it out there, and then the players like you spin off with the players. They play with it, interrogate it, interact with it, do things that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I guess that's the
And
other
then you
concern. Is like
respond.
It's like you have kind of like a set of responses in your brain that you're like, okay, gonna go this way, could go this way, could go this way, but it seems to most always go none of those ways.
Right.
You anticipate, and then I have been doing improv for a long time, so I have a little bit of faith in myself that I could like roll with the punches, but it is like.
Mm-hmm. And so the other dirty secret about that is an issue that never goes away.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Every DM struggles with, oh, I didn't expect them to do that. Oh, and then, oh, well, why did they, like, there are times where you're, like, mad at your players. Like, why did they,
Yeah.
I gave them plenty of hints. Why didn't they go this way?
Yeah.
Or why did they attack
Why
this
did they
guy?
talk to
He was
this
clearly their
NPC
friend. Yeah.
for an hour?
Or whatever. Yeah. So that's not,
He says, "Do not kill me." I'm going to.
Amy, I can't make any guarantees for tax safety. It's out of my hands. I'm sorry.
I am. Well, Amy, is Amy allowed to be in here?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Are we gonna
I
talk
don't know.
about what I have
You can
so far?
kick her out. Here's the thing. You can kick her out.
Should I mute? Well, I was gonna say it is what I'm planning is a throwback.
Yeah.
So if you can't die because then like you're
Right.
We've already been playing in the future, and how does that work?
We'll
You could have
talk
been a ghost this whole time.
We'll talk this specific scenario like in a little bit, and then we'll make sure that we kick our players out. But yeah, we talked about, especially when you're coming in to guest in somebody else's campaign.
Amy got banned.
I think it's fun to like go to a radically different timeline with the players. Like, don't try and pick up exactly where the other DM is left off.
I thought about doing that, and I was like,
yeah.
I mean, we're playing through a pre-made adventure. Like, I'm not gonna like muck up White Plume Mountain, by being like, let me do a chunk, like.
Mucking up White Plume Mountain wouldn't be.
It's just so classic. So classic. Amy, we haven't kicked you out yet.
We still love you, Amy. Don't worry. So there's the worry about like, oh, how am I gonna be able to respond to the players?
Sure.
And I think there's some planning, some prep that you can do that helps you with that. And one of the things that we talk about here regularly on the show is not planning a specific result of an encounter, but thinking about some different possible outcomes. So what's the coolest possible result? What's the best possible result for the party coming out of this particular thing? It might be something like, okay, so to go back to Sunless Citadel, when they encounter Meepo, right? When you guys encountered Meepo. Now, that encounter can go multiple different ways. So the best possible encounter or outcome of that whole thing, in my point of view, was you meet him, you befriend him, he becomes an ally and helps you out.
We did it!
You did that, right?
We did the thing!
But I also had queued up, like or at least considered,
him.
like the worst possible outcome is you murder him, all the kobolds hate you, the alarm gets raised. Now you have to fight all of these kobolds who could in fact be who could have been your allies, but now they're against you. Yeah. Right?
That would have been a very different game.
Yeah. And then like a mixed outcome, and maybe you sort of also had this too, is that Meepo doesn't trust you, but he decides to introduce you to the queen, and then we'll see what happens. Like whether you make a good impression on Newsdrail or not. Right?
We're pretty tight though.
So yeah. But the point being, then, no matter how, you know who Dirk Portley is.
That's that hashtag blame Jordan.
Are you sure? Because sometimes that's I thought that was Eric. No, is it Jordan?
We have a account in my channel that is every time someone types hashtag blame Jordan in the chat, a count goes up, and so it's like how many times have we blamed Jordan?
I see. So. Very good. So I think, when you're sitting down to plan your scenario, if there's a solid piece of advice that I can give to deal with that improv part of it, is if you have if you've kind of thought about those outcomes, then at least when the players throw a curveball at you, you can go, oh, it's not exactly what I thought of, but this could turn into one of the things that I did think of. I can bend it slightly, I make it slightly
sure,
different.
It's not a total out of nowhere,
And like, you know, I think D&D has so much writing attached to it. You know, there's so much reading, so much writing, and it comes out of such a strong literary tradition that people are tempted to like, I'm going to write a story. I have to have to come up with a story. I have my accounts confused. That's not surprising. And I don't think that running an RPG is running a story. It's you're jointly creating a story. And especially if you have more than one session, it's almost like you're creating a TV series, right? It's episode to episode to episode, and things that you introduced like 4 or 5 weeks ago bubble up and then pay off. You know. So it's easy to fall into that trap of, oh, so then and then by the end they've done this, and that's like a recipe for disaster. All right, so you're intimidated by you're a little intimidated by the improv. You're intimidated by kind of like trying to provide the same level of enjoyment, experience as what the group is used to. Quality as the group is used to. And I will say, like, just to reiterate, I think the group provides a lot of that themselves.
Yeah,
sure. It's surprising to me how many times, like, okay, they're, you know, you guys are off running on a tear about something, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now we'll rein it back in, and we'll go back in, you know, in a different direction. But it's like, it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of it's a lot of putting your horses out to pasture and then knowing when to call them in to feed. Yeah!
I don't think I liked that.
Havana's from Kansas. I want to make sure this whole talk was relatable. Montravant says the players are the catalyst and the DM is the medium. I think that's good. Yes. And Christian Linky says, I'm a terrible DM and I've just had luck with my groups. That's true. When I have an awful player in my group, like I did at Barnes & Noble a couple months ago.
Fucking calling people out.
Boy, there was a guy there. I don't remember who it was. He had like a beard and stuff.
Probably smelled weird.
The whole game was just flat and awful. Yeah.
What is Sinfizz?
Sinfizz says, as a DM, I usually only have the bare bones prepared. Monster stats, NPC names, locales, and then depending upon what I do, I just wing it. I love the spontaneous creation of a shared story. Most of the adventures my players loved were the ones that I came up with on the spot.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do that. Just make everything up.
Sure. Is there anything else that intimidates you? Do you feel like... Are you worried? I'll throw this out. A very common thing is like, how do I know? How am I going to know I'm not going to get the rules wrong? Like knowing all the rules.
Yeah, totally.
And I think there's a couple ways to handle this. The most important one being, don't worry about it. Like, it's just a game.
Yeah.
So who cares? Hey everybody, as regular viewers of my stream know, my wife is messaging me during the stream.
Oh. We'll get the rules wrong. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll just make up all the rules and then I won't have to worry about getting them right. Roll 4, shut the fuck up.
So the other part of that, though, is, like, you can take a moment to be like, oh, you know what, let me look that up. Or you can kind of designate somebody as, like, the table rules resource.
Sure.
And be like, oh, I'm not sure. How does that work? And then whoever's... And trust me, like, people who have been playing D&D for, 10 years, there's always that person at the table who's the player who's like, oh, they love the rules, they love knowing the rules, they go on Reddit, they read about the rules, da-da-da-da-da. And they're the ones who are going to actually about stuff.
Garav's kind of a rules whore.
Yeah. And so it's okay to go, oh, all right, hey, Garav, like, how does this work? Oh, well, he makes this roll and he makes this roll. Oh, okay, great. Then you do that and then it's over with. Like, and then, like, like then that person who's the rules lawyer feels like their life has been validated, their investment in the rules has been validated, and then you don't have to worry about like,
Sure.
oh, how does it actually work?
Yeah, no one's gonna be like, you don't know, you ding dong, you're fired. Like that probably won't happen. What do you know? What check this is?
Wow,
Get out.
maybe we should add donation levels tomorrow night where you can fire players from the game.
Aw, I don't want to fire anybody.
All right. Dirk Portley says, my thought on the matter is always respect the GM, and it frustrates me when people fight the GM on their calls.
You have two players at the table who consistently do this.
Yeah.
It's me and Amy.
And
it's me and Amy.
well, and so I mean that's a different motivation, right? Like you guys are in my experience, you guys are fighting the GM because what's happening is something that you're like anxious about. Why is this happening? Why are we getting in more trouble? No, but we're
what
good.
I meant to say was
how do I avoid dying?
You know what I meant? You know what I meant when what? No.
And
I want to use my bumps now.
And that comes from a different place than somebody who's like read the rules a ton.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. You don't know. Actually, the appropriate check for the scenario would be blah, blah, blah.
Like one of them is like anxiety about like the party getting killed or getting hurt,
Sure.
and one of them is having this investment and wanting to show off their knowledge or take advantage of the knowledge that they've amassed, right? Sinfiz says, above all, this is a role-playing game, rules are a guideline, and as long as the story is progressing and people are having fun, you're doing a great job, right? Which is the third part, which is like you can just make a snap rule, and as long as it seems fair, or it's something where you can go, well, I'm not sure how it works, but we're going to do it this way, and then we'll revisit it at the end of the session just to keep the game moving, right? Yeah, if you play with someone who challenges every rolling, I mean, so the other part of it, which is sort of related to our discussion, but is really a whole separate topic, which is there's a social contract, but not just like from the GM to provide prepare and provide a good game, but there's also a social contract on the player side saying, oh, you put this work into creating this meal, quote unquote. I'm not going to walk in and just like throw everything off the table and,
Ooh, unless it's sexy. I'm pushing it off the table because I need you now.
I feel like the sexy game happens on a different channel that's not Saving Throw, and I feel like there's a monthly pass and I would be getting paid a lot more. Or maybe,
why aren't we cam girls, Tom? Why aren't we cam girls? I need bitcoins.
All right, so... yes, often the DM is doing things for story or character reasons, and then somebody pops in with you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that is a conundrum, I think, that's born more of D&D the system as opposed to an inherent RPG thing where you as the GM, you're like, want to get the story point out of the way and then move on, and you're like, okay, well, as you're about to like stick him in the neck with your sword, he suddenly turns into gas and like floats away. And there are players who are like, well, I get a reaction and I'm going to da 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 da. Like we'll use the rules.
Like, no, that's
And you're like, well, I'm trying to have a dramatic moment here, which is a little like GM fiat type of thing.
And this character needs to come back in the future to do a thing, so you can't kill him.
There's two sides to that. One is there are some games that allow you to have more GM fiat and do what you want, and then the other is sometimes it's okay to like over the course of your career, you'll discover, well, there's always more adventure to be had. So even if they kill this guy, it turns out he's just the lieutenant. There's a bad guy. I can invent, as the GM, you can always invent more obstacles, more NPCs, more monsters, more challenges. So when the players like destroy one in a clever way, as long as it doesn't just completely leave you at a loss, we're like, oh, I don't know what to do next. Like, you can always come up with that guy's brother who's back to avenge him or whatever it is. All right. Listen, I may have been wearing it on Thursday. I washed it in between.
It
Trust
has creases in it, guys. It's been folded.
But thank you for paying attention to my wardrobe. I appreciate it.
Dude.
Are we both looking left? Yeah, I guess we are. I can mirror Let me mirror this.
Oh, are we both looking away from each other to talk to each other?
I'm not sure what's. When I look at you, I look
Oh,
this way.
yeah.
Yeah.
That is pretty funny.
That's this one, right?
That's pretty funny. I'll just look over here.
Nope, that's this
Wait,
one.
that one.
Okay.
No.
Hang on. I've got it. Wait. Hang on. There's going to be a time warp. Now when it does it
There
work?
we go. It works.
Does it work?
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Ta-da.
That's so funny.
Very good. All right. So is there anything else about DMing that you want to talk about in terms of like? I mean, we can move on if you feel like, all right, okay, well, I got a feel for that. But is there anything else about DMing that like you're curious about, or you're intimidated by, or you just don't quite understand how you're gonna tackle it or whatever?
I don't know. It's kind of also one of those things. It's like you don't even know what questions to ask until
it happens.
It's
right?
too late.
Yeah, very good.
Until it's too late.
I mean, I just want to reiterate the point that like you're one small part of the play experience. There's 4 or 5 other people who are all contributing to this.
Sure.
thing.
Yeah. So it's like.
And along those, so for one thing, you only have to prep like that, some slice of the pie. The other thing that's sort of a dirty trick, or a realization that you'll probably come to, or that will help you anyhow, is that because there's 4 minds working, you're in the business of creating problems,
Sure.
right? Like that's your job. Is okay, you have come to a large stone door. It's made of black marble. It has some weird runes on it. There's no handle. What do you do? Okay, well the challenge here is there's a door without a handle. It's closed. We want to go through it, obviously. How do we get through it, right? That's the challenge. But when you might have in your notes, oh, okay, these are some things. This is the way to open this door.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got 4 other brains who are all working on this door and also incorporating all of the other material that has led up to that moment. And so they might be like, oh boy, remember that vampire, like he was always setting stuff on fire? Maybe if we, use some fire and put fire next to the door, it will do something, right? So the point being, like, you've got 4 little computers all spinning away, all collaborating on this idea, and what they can't come up with might be more interesting
Sure.
than what you had written down on your piece of paper.
Sure.
So there's a certain amount of finesse to, like, yes, that works, and then you move on. So don't be beholden to your notes, I guess, is the message there. I agree with Christian that Robin's laws of good gaming are terrific. You can find that on Steve Jackson's website on Warehouse 23 is the best place to get the PDF for that. I have the hard copy. But Robin's Laws of Good Gaming talks about a bunch of different things, which we don't have time to get into. And some of it is stuff like, oh, okay, this player loves the role-playing, the acting part of it. And this player loves the puzzle solving. And this player just loves fighting. And this player loves talking about the rules and that sort of stuff. All right. So with that as sort of our preface, let's talk about what you want to do for your one-shot and kind of like what you're thinking, how you're approaching it.
Sure. Are all our players out of the chat?
Did all of our players go away?
No spoilers. I guess it'll be spoiled for you because you'll be playing. That's fine. Spoiler time. We'll have there. Oh no.
Oh, wait.
Oh wait. We're tuned into Disorganized Play, but I just wanted to wish Vanna good luck for tomorrow since I'll not be able to catch Iron Keep Chronicles due to work. Have fun. You'll do a great job. Oh, thank you so much.
If you can tune in on the VOD, or
Good.
it'll eventually find its way to YouTube at our Save the Throw channel. So, so yeah, let's talk about what you want to do, what you think, what the idea that you're sort of stirring around right now.
So, like, I don't know, when I was thinking about it, when we kind of decided that it would be like a one-off and it would probably be like a throwback, like, I don't know why, but my first idea was camping. And just because, we were talking about, think of something interesting, like a unique location, kind of put something where things are going on. And so I was thinking about, based on personal experiences, and combined with some sort of fantasy aspects, that would be interesting, like going to a camp.
Right.
Like in a fantasy world, like how weird would that be? Like we all go to camps normally, or well, I don't know if everybody doesn't go to a camp, but I've been to a camp, and a lot of people I know have gone to camp, and it's a very even in the real world, a very surreal experience because it's like what? It's just a bunch of kids that got left by their parents, and now these people that are barely older than them are in charge, and you're making crafts you don't want, and you're eating food that's shit, and you have 5 seconds to bathe in a cold shower. Like it's just like a very weird experience in general, but throwing in fantasy aspects into that I thought would be really fun. And then also I thought throwing in a mystery too would be fun.
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking like if Scooby-Doo went to camp.
Okay.
Plus
all right.
high fantasy.
Sure. Well, and I think the you get a great concept because you take what I consider to be kind of like a loaded experience, right? Like going to camp, I think, is a loaded experience in terms of it's loaded with a couple things. It's loaded with a lot of emotion,
sure,
right? I mean, one of the reasons that I love playing one shots and prequels where the characters are teenagers is that everything is so dramatic and the emotions swing so far and all that kind of stuff, right? And things that shouldn't be, important is oh my god, that sort of stuff. So it's loaded in terms of you're not quite an adult who's off on their own for maybe the first time or not, whatever, but you're off on your own and with minimal supervision. But it's also loaded with with a bunch of unique experiences that we can relate to, in terms of okay, what happens at a camp? You sleep in bunk beds. Okay, everybody has a cabin. There's usually cabin versus cabin type of competition, right? Yeah. There's the different counselors are maybe having a romance behind the scenes, all of those things.
Sure.
There's a bunch of, I don't want to call them cliches, but they're standard kind of experiences that are and set pieces that are all tied into that idea of camp. In the middle of the night, we're gonna go skinny dipping, or we're gonna take the canoe across the lake to the old creepy cave, or whatever it is, right? So I think that's a terrific baseline, regardless of what kind of game you were going to play, what genre or what system you're going to run. That's a great place to start. And then with because you're going to play D&D, to layer on almost to kind of Harry Potter the whole thing in terms of okay, well they wouldn't just have arts and crafts. They would have something else that would be magical, high fantasy, or something like that. And you wouldn't just go out in the woods and go identify berries. You would go maybe have a potions class or something that, right? We're gonna make a very basic potion that turns your skin blue, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think with those sorts of things, as long as they're not super, I don't know, it's your style of game, so it depends upon what you want to play. If you want to make it a game where the kids all learn a spell that transforms them into magical lightning and they can shoot themselves into the sky, that's up to you. But you can easily come up with stuff that's very I would just crudely describe it as Harry Potter-esque, where it maybe has an effect, but it's not high power wizard stuff, right? That makes it interesting, unique, and fun. And one of the things I was saying while you're in the bathroom.
Whoa! I would never do that.
Since I brought up Harry Potter, which is, regardless of where you steal from and what material you use as your inspiration, because you're running you're running the game, it's going to be your game.
Sure.
Right? And sometimes that stuff can be very much of a shortcut, where it's oh, candy frogs. Oh yeah, just like in Harry Potter, they people get it. As long as you're not one for one replicating every single thing about a scenario in Harry Potter, it's fine, right? Well, people don't want to replay a story because they know the ending, right? But they do want to adventure in that world of like, oh, what if wyverns were real, or
Sure,
what if there was a magical stop, etc., etc., etc. Like I find, not that this is like, this isn't meant to like throw shade on your game, but I find when I play with kids, that's their main entry into playing role playing games. Is they want to play a Harry Potter style game.
Sure.
And they like, the kids do not care about like directly quoting Harry Potter.
Sure.
They want to quote Harry Potter. They want to play. They want when you cast magic, they just want to say the Latin phrase that activates it. They don't want to like, okay, so how many hit points do I have? They don't. Harry Potter doesn't have hit points, so so it's one of those things like when I run a game for kids, that's when they really like they go hard after those references. I'm not saying that you do. But like it's okay to steal those bits and then make it your own, because it's going to be your own game. General Fancy Pants says there could be a lake monster and it would be a dire leviathan.
Who said that?
General Fancy Pants.
Okay.
A potion that turns your skin blue, makes you grow a size category, and makes a third eye appear in your forehead.
That's a...
Yes, yes. Well, and so that's the other part of it, right? Is that you can steal from video games or whatever you like.
Oh, well, that was our last campaign. That's Burgermeister.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He had wild magic, and so just like sometimes he'd just be like an oily sheep for no reason. And
very good.
But one time he was blue and floating and had a third eye.
I saw Mineheart, and I'm like, oh, it's an Overwatch reference.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that too.
All right. So, okay. Well, so tell me more about. Oh, you said you want to run a mystery game. Okay. I think. Do you want to say something about it?
Oh, I was just gonna say. I was thinking a murder.
Okay.
And then
a murder at camp. All right. Well,
and
then it took a dark turn.
A murder at camp, and then the murderer is leaving clues.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sameth Pirkoth is making an Udo Meinhardt reference, which was my character in Barky's Brigade.
Oh, interesting. Well, that also happened to Burgermeister.
Oh, old school.
Wait, did Udo Meinhardt have wild magic? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense then. They're all wild
and
magic.
He had the ever-burning lanthorn of Nidox, which is like this magical... Yes. Yes, very good. Christian Linky says, one piece of advice on a mystery game, don't pick the killer, let the PCs determine who the killer is. And that... I
had a very strong idea who the killer was.
Okay. Well, so I think that goes back to the chat that we had earlier in the stream here today, which was best possible outcome, a mixed possible outcome, and then worst possible outcome could also apply to like how the adventure plays out,
sure,
or how the adventure ends, right? So it could be like, well, this guy is the murderer under this kind of set of circumstances, but if it makes sense, maybe this guy's the murderer or this guy's the murderer. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think that why don't you talk some more about like what you think of the murder mystery, like the concept of how you want to run it or work it. You don't have to give it away if you'd like to.
Oh, well, it's just going to be like, fine. Okay, there's a murder, a lot of it, everybody's attention is like, oh my god, the murder, but then there's like a little note on the body, and it's a clue, and the clue kind of sends you in one direction. Okay. But then once you get there, there's another clue, but then they all kind of lead to this one, climax where you encounter the murderer.
Okay. Sure.
But you're probably having small instances at each point where you're finding another clue, where it's like you can't just like, we're gonna go here and get the clue. It's gonna be like, no, we're gonna go here and have to defeat these creatures or deal with this situation, or what have you. So.
Right. Okay. So, hey, dog is being bad.
What are you doing, dog?
Don't be bad.
What are you doing, dog?
Yeah. So the the trick with a murder mystery is oftentimes, like you said, you go here, you pick up this clue, you go here, you pick up that leads you to this place, that leads you to this place, etc. Right? And oftentimes in a murder mystery, what will happen is the players go to this spot and they either miss the clue that they should have found or they misinterpret the clue that they should have found, and then then you as the DM are like, well, how do I get them back on track? Right?
Yeah.
And that's when oftentimes, like, it's easy to introduce an element of railroading where it's like, oh, well, this gruff farmer walks up and was like, didn't you hear about the wild cougars that were running around in the mountains or whatever it was? And the players are like, oh, okay, no, I guess we didn't. We didn't pick up. We should have searched for tracks, I guess. And then the players feel like, like you're pushing the discoveries on them as opposed to them kind of organically finding them.
Yeah.
A common way to structure these types of, like a murder type of investigation is something that's there's a couple different names for it, but one is called island style design, and the other one is called 5x5. But I'm just going to briefly talk about island style, which is what it comes down to is you make basically like little islands of information. Okay, so you might have a location, which would be the old mine. Okay, you might have an NPC who is the grizzled hunter. You might have, so we got a location, we got an NPC. You might have something. Those are kind of like, locations are good, right? So you might have an event too. You might have an event like the rush at the claims office, right? So I'm going to show everybody my little notes, right? Except are they backwards? Can you read them? Are they backwards? I think they're backwards. All right. So what you can do is have different ways that these things connect, right? And so you might want to get to, you might want to finally get to like a cabin in the woods, right? Well, the players might start somewhere off here at camp. And what you can do is come up with ways that they might go from one island to the other, right? So they might discover a deed, and that might send them to the claims office where they find that there's a rush going on of a bunch of miners, blah blah blah.
Sure.
Well, those miners might lead them to the old mine. In the old mine, they might find, footprints or a map or whatever it is, right? And that leads them eventually to the cabin in the woods. Similarly, you could have another branch where if they decide to go swimming at night, right? Go swimming, or go across the lake, let's just put it that way. They encounter the grizzled old hunter.
Sure.
He might mention something about the weird noises coming out of the old mine. That then might, lead, or whatever. So the idea being that you have different multiple paths. Maybe the grizzled hunter gives them a way to go to the claims office. Oh, I don't know anything about that, but my partner, who's a miner, he might have heard something about. Where can I find him? Oh, he's probably he's probably staking his claim right now. Everybody's got 2 days to do that. So you can come up with these pathways that sort of form like a web, so that instead of worrying about what happens when they go, A to B to C, and then they go over here, and you're like, how do I?
Sure, yeah.
Instead, you have kind of this little game plan. Now, these connection things can be the outcomes of these encounters, right? These are all essentially encounters. Like at its most elemental, right, is an encounter is a little puzzle that has some information to be revealed. Okay? Your biggest job as the DM is to respond to questions from the players and give them information that they can act on.
Sure.
So it's not just enough to respond to their questions, because if they say, do I recognize the footprints? And you go, do I recognize what kind of type of tracks these are? And you go, no, you don't know. Okay, there's no more information for them there.
Sure.
Right? If they make a roll, even if they make a bad roll, and you say, well, you don't recognize these tracks, but it's clearly a four-legged creature. Okay, well, you've given them a little bit more information. Yeah. You may not have said, "Oh, yeah, this is the infamous displacer beast that that lives in the woods or whatever it is."
Yeah.
But if you give them, but that's your main job is you set up like this puzzle box,
sure.
this black box that has this Pandora's box, or I guess puzzle box is maybe a better way, where if they push on one side or they poke on one side or they turn the rod or whatever it is, it opens up a little bit. It gives them a little more information, a little bit extra, until finally at the end of it they have kind of enough pieces to then go and act on something else. Luigi wants to be petted, so if you can make sure that you pet Luigi, that would be great.
Like some smacks.
So I think the idea of a mystery is good. It may not even have to be particularly complicated.
Maybe like no clues, and it's more of just like going to areas, and maybe not a literal clue like, oh, this is like a poem or a riddle-esque thing on a piece of paper that's going to point you in a direction. More is it's going to be a physical, like, okay, if you're going to explore this area, then maybe it's tracks, maybe it's a witness.
There's always ways to like I would encourage you to think of ways to show evidence of what's happening, right? And like so in this particular scenario that you're talking about, the most straightforward evidence is there's a note left behind. That bastard had it coming. Anybody who comes after me is getting it next, right? Like that's a very obvious wham. That's an obvious.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking.
And the players don't have to do a lot of work with that. They don't have to do a lot of questioning. They don't have to do a lot of processing.
Sure.
And really that's the player's role in a fundamental level. That's the player's role in this whole thing, is that you've created this closed box that has secrets inside of it, and the player's job is to come at it with investigative techniques that expose more information. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that means the investigative technique.
Oh, I'm so sorry I booped you.
Booper.
I booped you with my elbow. You just want to put your head right there?
Hello, Mooper. He's gonna want to go to the restroom soon, but we only have another 10 or 15 minutes, so he'll be fine. Hi, buddy. I see you. I know. Yeah.
Sweetie. Oh, no.
There he is.
I don't know about that.
Sometimes the way that players find out more information is by beating something into submission and then interrogating it,
sure.
Right? Yeah, I know. He loves it getting scratched behind his ears.
Oh yeah.
You're having the best time.
It's a good spot.
So keep in mind that that's the dynamic on the balancing act behind the two sides of the screen is I've got a secret. I've created a set of secrets over here. I've got a set of information that you don't know, and the players are going to take action to find those pieces out and put those pieces together. All right, go lay down. Hey. He's like, no, I wanted to get petted.
You got so many pets.
He's like, am I gonna get a drink? No.
I'm not sure there's one. That's good.
I know, buddy. Go lay down. I hear you.
He's like, I get what I want.
You gonna lay down here with us?
Aww.
Is that what's happening?
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. So that's kind of the fundamental thing at play, right? And the other concept that I would encourage you to think about is the basic setup here is the players expect to be challenged, right? The players will be challenged. They respond to that challenge. And as a result, they gain information or power or gold or XP, like whatever it is, right? But it's a very basic kind of like Skinner box kind of like carrot and the stick type of thing. Risky Pixels, thanks for the sub. 4 in a row.
Thanks
Say
for
what?
subbing on in.
If you tune in tomorrow night, we will give you, you'll have a reroll that you can apply to one of our players.
Yes. Me, somehow.
So that's the basic mechanism of D&D is like a very simple psychological type of experiment. Is if I push the button enough times, roll dice, investigate, ask the DM questions. If I push the button enough times, I get information back, or I get a magic item, or I get, whatever. It's a very simple reward structure.
Sure.
But it's all about information flow.
Sure.
And the dirty secret is sometimes the information that they're pulling out of you is stuff that you've only thought of right then because they suggested it.
I got it, yeah.
I have to let Amazon in. There we go. So that's kind of some high level, like high concept stuff. But one of the trickier parts of being a DM is finding that balance of, well, here's a note that tells you who did it, which is very low challenge.
Sure.
Right? Versus we inspect the body, we look, there's there's no wound marks, the guy's just dead, whatever.
You tried to open your door?
I don't know if he needs to sign for. No, he doesn't. All right, good.
Sounds like you tried to open your door.
I think he knocked. I don't know.
The weirdest note.
So on the one end of the spectrum, if it's too obvious, the players don't feel like they've been challenged, right? They don't feel like they've earned the reward.
Sure.
Players want to feel like they've earned the reward of whatever they've gotten. They want to feel like they've earned the info that you give them. They want to feel like they've earned the magic item. If you just hand out magic items willy-nilly, they're like,
sure.
Okay. So finding a way to appropriately challenge them and make them feel like they've earned whatever experience they've gotten. That's kind of like, that's really when you boil it way down into a nutshell. That's what DMing is.
Yeah.
Is giving them challenges, things that make them feel appropriately challenged. And sometimes when something's really hard for them, that's okay as long as they get a big payoff at the end, right? It's like as long as you don't have to have everything like finely balanced exactly like, oh well, we're gonna spend 10 minutes on this, and then in the 10 minutes they'll have figured out what it was. Like some things can be harder than others, as long as the reward is appropriate for how hard they worked for it. So, what else do we have in our chat here? Is there anything else you want to say about the scenario?
Well, I was gonna ask. We talked about running it as a. Oh gosh, hi. 2 cups of coffee. I'm still yawning.
Yeah.
You talked about maybe running it as beasts.
Beastlings. Yeah.
Instead
Running
of
it
a regular
system.
D&D game, which
Yeah.
they're definitely older than what we played them as in Beastlings, so I don't know if it's...
Really? Do you think they're older? Because like I was thinking in Beastlings they were like around 16.
Oh, okay.
16 to
then,
17.
Okay.
So I think you have the opportunity here you could play them younger. Like this could be 12-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
You could play kind of like an in-between where they're like 17. But like when I think of like going to camp, I generally think of kids that are about 12 to 13.
Sure. Yeah.
So this could even be more of a prequel. Because when I think of our session 0, to me it was you're right on the cusp of becoming a full-fledged adult, and so
Okay.
like you guys were off. You guys were off like on a hunting trip or something like that by yourselves. You didn't have adult supervision, so
Sure.
obviously everybody felt like you had enough responsibility to go off by
Sure.
yourselves. And then when you came back, the village was under this curse, right? So, I think you could actually like it could be a prequel. It could be younger.
So would that mean we could use the same sheets as our first Beastlings games, or do I need to bring sheets, or we make them at the table, or what? How would that work?
Yeah, so Beastlings is so lightweight that I think we can assign it at the table. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Some of the stuff like we had a thing where we had established bonds, because it was our session 0, but we know what those are, so I don't think we need to take time to do that. And I think they've already played the system, so it's just a matter of like, okay, I'm going to assign my dice to my character sheet
Okay.
and call it good.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we could play Beastlings. This is something that we had talked about, and I think the purpose here is to get away from kind of the minutia and mechanics that D&D can introduce. Like, oh, well, if I want to have a displacer beast, is that going to be an appropriate challenge for a group of kids or whatever? Like they're going to be level 0 characters and whatnot. Like, how do I make that fit and work? And to me, that's a lot of mechanical stuff that can easily kind of go astray. Whereas with Beastlings, it's a more narrative type of system, and you'll be able to make judgment calls on that kind of on the fly.
Okay. Yeah.
It does bring us back to like figuring out what an appropriate challenge is, right? Like, I think one of the things that you might struggle with is knowing how much to hurt the characters, because that game doesn't really have like a ton of hit points, right?
Sure.
So like when you're playing D&D and you go, oh, okay, the Displacer Beast hits you for 13 points of damage, and the person goes, I'm unconscious, you go, oh shit, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? But you can always check in on their hit points during the game when you're playing D&D. Okay, how many hit points do you have? How are you doing? In Beastlings, you just sort of have control over it. So knowing like, oh, I'm gonna knock this guy out cold, knowing whether that's like appropriate or too much,
Sure.
or not enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all that part of it gets a little. It's going to be a series of judgment calls for you. But the good news is you're in control of it, right? Whereas with D&D, if you've introduced a monster that's way too powerful for them, it's really hard to pull yourself out of that situation. Oh, okay, well, the Displacer Beast gets bored and just sort of wanders off. And all the players are like, what? Like, why would he do that? Why wouldn't he eat that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they can't eat that guy because, in the regular timeline, that guy's alive.
Sure, yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess the other option would be is running a regular D&D campaign and then having them be like the counselors at the camp. And then maybe it's not that far ahead of like the timeline we're already at.
I mean, that would be terrific too. That depends upon. I think the tricky part about that, I love that scenario. I think it involves more prep because you have to come up with the camp counselor. Oh, you mean using your existing characters as the camp counselors?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that could work. But running it as D&D? Mm-hmm. So would everybody be fourth just be whatever level they are now?
I mean, could we just smudge it?
I mean, that's the tricky part.
Everybody lose 2 levels before we do this
Everybody roll
campaign.
back to level 1 or whatever.
I know you got those sheets.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would be that hard to revert to those level 1 characters. Sure. I'm inclined to like. I think you've got the improv skills and stuff to just roll with Beastmasters, right? Or with Beastlings.
Mm-hmm.
I did a different game that I called that's a sci-fi game called Beastmasters. Yeah, so I mean, it is like the thing about Beastlings is you're constantly assessing, like, okay, what's the cool result here? What's the mixed result? What's the harsh result? Right? You're constantly doing that throughout the game. It's baked into the game.
Sure. Okay.
But it's also a good way to like get up to that. One of the other so Beastlings is based on a game by John Harper called Wildlings, and one of the other games that he created is a game called Danger Patrol, and we might consider lifting a technique and a mechanic from Danger Patrol, which is whenever somebody's doing something, as the GM, you kind of like lay out like, oh, okay, so Tack is going to run across the clearing and stab this displacer beast with the sharpened stick that she pulled out of the fire. Great. So in Danger Patrol, the GM kind of lays out like, well, this could go wrong for you in a couple of ways. Like the thing could attack you, right? Or the stick could break.
Yeah.
But once the GM kind of lays out some possibilities, they turn it over to the rest of the table, and they go, okay, so Havana, what's dangerous about what Amy's doing? Oh, well, she doesn't realize that this whole campsite that they set their campsite on top of a bear trap, and there's actually like a bear trap buried somewhere in the area, and she could trip and fall into it, right? and the thing is, what happens there is you get all of these different possibilities for what might happen, and it's like improv suggestions. You don't have to take any of them, but then when they roll badly, you go, you know what? Havana was right. You stumbled right into this bear trap. You fall 10 feet, and you sprain your ankle, and the displacer beast is now standing over you, growling. At the top of the pit. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that's the place where like one final point that we'll end our discussion on, which is it's also your job in challenging the players. What that means is the players have to get in trouble, right? And their challenge is to fight their way out of that trouble. Like, they trust you that you're not going to put something so difficult in there that they can't figure out a way out of it, right? But your responsibility as the GM is to create problems and to get the players in trouble, to put them in a pinch.
Sure, yeah.
And the player's job is to take on that challenge and fight their way out of it. Okay, so it's been an hour. How are you feeling about DMing?
Still terrified.
Still terrified.
Still terrified.
Yeah, as BSB Care says, there has to be the potential for failure, but you can't make it a walkover. So.
Sure. Yeah, it's the balance.
All right. Well, is there anything else? Any other questions or concerns that you want to tackle that we should talk about?
I mean, probably, but I have to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I know you got a call time. You got to be someplace. So that's all good too. All right. So we'll decide exactly what rule systems we're gonna use. If you have questions about structuring your adventure, does it feel like more work now or less work?
I don't know. Maybe about the same, but it was seemed like a lot already. So.
I will say with the scenario that you have, you could easily also just have some fun character development exploration portion of the night, which is let's do some fun events.
Yeah.
Let's
do camp stuff.
Right.
Before the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Or whatever it is.
I definitely wrote down some camp stuff we could do.
That sort of stuff. So don't feel like developing the plot is something that you really.
Sure.
It's important to
have
an idea of what the outline of how the pieces might fit together.
Sure.
But there's so many parts of the game that are in the player's lap aren't, that you just get to sit back and watch them like spin off on like, okay, how are you going to deal with these weird elementals that live in the lake?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, very good. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This has been a very special head-to-head edition of Disorganized Play. My big thanks to Havana Mahoney. Very good. I hope you all learned something. I had a great chat here today. I'm anxious to. I'll be playing Avril, just to keep that in mind.
You need to dress like me. I'm like taking notes right now. I gotta get some cargo pants.
What do I need?
And a ring.
Oh, you're gonna dress like me? Do you want to borrow one of my T-shirts? Is that what needs to come down? I can get you a They Might Be Giants T-shirt to wear.
There we go. I need like a DM related shirt. I feel like you wear those to a lot of our games.
I have some D&D T-shirts. I will bring one. Tank tops and cutoff jeans. Do you really want to see me in a tank top? Is that?
It's what I wear.
Oh,
it's my
boy.
signature brand,
All right.
black tank tops and
I don't know
shorts.
about the cutoff jeans or the jorts. They're not going to show, but we'll see what we can do.
They'll know. They'll know.
All right, I'll do my. You're all in for some special treats tomorrow night.
My
Regardless
God.
of how the game goes, I guarantee you it will be entertaining and fun.
We'll have a good time. I'll be drunk.
I meant that as much for you as I meant that for them. Regardless of how the game goes, we're gonna have a good time.
We're gonna have a good time, guys.
So I'm very confident in that.
I'm bringing the hard stuff.
Very good.
Heroin.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick look at our calendar for the rest of the week. So tomorrow night is our Iron Keep Chronicles game. I don't know if it will be 5e. It's a one-shot. That's all up to Havana. We'll work that out. Thursday, we'll be back at 2 o'clock. I don't want to put you on the spot as to whether you want to come back at 2 o'clock and talk about how it went.
I think I can do that.
On Thursday?
I think so.
All right. Well, maybe we will do that.
Maybe we'll do the thing.
Thursday night is Never Tell Me the Odds with Mr. David Crennan. I believe the Crit Juice crew is in there playing Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken. Friday, of course, Mr. Wes Otis is DMing our Call of Cthulhu Black Bag Vikings game. It's the season finale! Who knows what them Vikings is up to? I bet you do. If you don't, hey, on Saturday and Sunday, it'll be too late. You can get caught back up on YouTube for all of our shows. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everyone like Farquaad and the rest of our mods. Thank you for all of our regulars. Thanks to Risky Pixels for subbing up and everyone who joined us here. It was a great chat today. Christian Linky's drop another sub. So thank you so much for joining us. And until next time,
Let's
dungeon! Oh, I did it right. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.